wax beans, golden beets, lavender, cucumbers, black cream tomatoes, leeks. There are so many options of plants and seeds. How do you decide what to grow? Well, stick with me today as I give you 10 suggestions of things you should think about when choosing what to grow. Hi, I'm Gardener Scott, and these are some of the hundreds of seed packets that I wade through at this time of year, trying to choose which of them will find a place in my garden. And no doubt I'll be buying more seeds before I actually get growing. Well, to help me and to help you in deciding what to grow, I think it's important to look at some of these considerations, some of these tips, some of these ideas to help narrow it down. Because while I would like to grow hundreds of different types of plants in my garden, that's just not feasible. And so it changes from year to year. And this is a dilemma many gardeners have. What do I grow this year? Well, high on the list of the things I look for in deciding what to grow is the value of the harvest. If I can grow a high value crop, I get more bang for my buck in the garden. And what do I mean by this? Well, when you go to the produce section of your store or even a farmer's market or a farm stand, what is it you're buying and how much are you spending for it? If it's one of those things that you cringe about each time you see it, well, consider growing it in your garden. Things like fresh herbs. If I go to the store and I buy something like oregano, I'm spending a lot of money for just a few leaves and stems, and it doesn't stay very long in my kitchen. I have to use it right away or it dries out or begins to go bad, but I can get oregano seeds and grow them in my garden. The same with thyme and sage and all of those other fresh herbs that you would like to use in your cooking. Well, rather than going to the store and paying a small fortune for fresh herbs, grow them yourself. And that holds true for many other aspects of cooking. I have lemongrass seeds, so I'll be growing lemongrass. Have you priced just a few stalks of lemongrass if you're doing any type of recipe that requires it? Well, it's almost not worth the effort, but it can be quite easy to grow indoors in most cold regions and even outdoors in warm regions. So as you're beginning the selection of what to grow, think about what you're going to gain, or better yet, how much money you're going to save if you can grow the plant and then enjoy the harvest. The second thing I consider are the crops that you can't even find at your store. Things like goji berries. Now, goji berry is a wonder fruit packed with nutrients and taste. But when was the last time you saw fresh goji berries in the local produce section? You probably never have. But you can grow goji in your backyard, in your garden, and harvest fresh goji berries. You can even dry them and use them in a number of different recipes and get all those health benefits. There are a huge number of tomatoes that you can't find in a store. Gold Nugget, Kellogg's Breakfast, Lemon Drop. These are all great tomatoes that I grow because they're not available anyplace else. And the list goes on and on. There are so many products that we like to eat, but that we just can't find in the store. So that's one of the things I look at when I choose what to grow, along with what it is that I like to eat. You should grow what you like. Don't necessarily grow something because of a pretty picture in a catalog. Grow something because you like to eat it, like these tomatoes that I just pointed out. If your family eats a lot of golden beets, then grow golden beets. I guarantee you these will taste better than any of the golden beets that you can buy at the store. If you like a lot of leeks, potato and leek soup, well then grow potatoes and grow leeks. Whatever it is that you eat on a regular basis or really like to eat on a special occasion, then go ahead and grow those in your garden. You might also want to think about the pesticides that are used in commercial agriculture when deciding what you're going to grow in your garden, because so many of the fruits and the vegetables that we're buying have been doused with chemicals, often harmful chemicals. The Environmental Working Group has a list that they call the Dirty Dozen, and I'll put a link to it in the description below. And they've identified the 12 things that we're buying in our produce section that are the worst culprits for pesticides. Well, I don't use pesticides in my garden, so I can grow some of those crops like strawberries and tomatoes and apples and potatoes. Those are among the Dirty Dozen. But if I grow them in my garden, I know that they will be pesticide-free. And that holds true with all of the things that you're growing. Now, there are some things you can get at the organic market, but again, those tend to be a little bit more expensive. So if I can save money, as I talked about before, and now grow them in my garden with no concerns about harmful chemicals, well, I'm going to choose as many of those plants as I can. And as I put together my plan for what I'm going to grow, I also want to make it as easy as possible on myself. So I want to choose the plants that will be easy to grow in my garden. And this varies from my garden to yours because we have different climate and different weather needs. But take a look at what is easy. If you haven't discovered it yet, talk to other gardeners in your area. In my area, tomatoes are extremely easy. I can grow spinach and beans and peas with almost no effort. So if I put the seeds or the plants into my garden, all I really need to worry about is watering and mulching and maybe dealing with a pest issue. But for the most part, I just sit back and wait until it's time to harvest. By choosing something that's easy, it makes the whole process more enjoyable. And at the end, you can sit back and realize that's something you're going to grow again. I also like to grow plants that do well in my area. And these two coincide quite a bit because there are many plants that I would like to grow. And they might be easy to grow in a warm region, but in my colder Colorado Zone 5B garden, there's just some things I can't grow. The season is just too short. I recognize that. So as I'm looking through all of these different seed packages, I'm selecting the plants that can grow in a shorter season. I'm choosing the tomatoes like a lot of these cherry tomatoes. This is only 70 days to harvest. So I can put the plant in the ground and definitely get a harvest before my season is over. But I'm not growing tomatoes like mortgage lifter, some of the big heirloom tomatoes that might take 100 or 120 days to harvest. That's just too long for me. So I'm looking at the length of the season, the days to harvest, and making sure that those plants will grow well in my area, that these plants match my climate and weather. And I also want to match the plant to the specific location within my garden. And this should hold true for all the plants that you grow. If I've got a shady spot in my garden, well, then I should be selecting seeds that can grow well in shade. If I have an area that gets no shade at all, then I need to make sure that I select the plant to go in that spot that needs full sun. Shady plants just won't work. If I have a wet area, a dry area, all of those areas can be matched to specific plants. And the soil plays into this as well. I have an alkaline soil, so as I choose my seeds and plants, I can't put in a plant that likes an acidic, low pH soil. And that may be the reverse for you. If you've got an acidic soil, well, then the type of plants you're going to have the best success with are the plants that can handle low pH conditions. So when I'm actually choosing the plants that are going to go in my garden, I need to make sure that they match with my soil and my sun and my shade, in addition to the climate and the weather. That will give me the best success. I'm also looking beyond the harvest when I'm deciding what seeds to grow. I'm looking at things like preservation. what can I do with these plants after I've harvested them? So I have many fruit trees and fruit bushes that I'm growing in my garden for the purpose of making jams and jellies, just one type of preservation. I love the golden beets to use fresh, but I'm also growing beets to make pickled and fermented beets. There are many of these plants that I'm thinking well beyond the actual harvest, and I'm thinking about how I'm going to use them months later. The herbs, I'm growing most of those. So I'm growing the thyme and the sage and the oregano and the tarragon and the mint and all of the others, not just because it saves me money when I go to the store, but because I can dry all of those and use them in cooking throughout the year and for years to come. I also am looking beyond the harvest as I'm thinking about the seeds. And so when I choose a tomato plant, I prefer to choose something like Kellogg's Breakfast, which is an heirloom open pollinated tomato. That means I can save these seeds and grow the same plants year after year. So while there are a number of great plants to choose, when I'm actually deciding what goes in my garden, I have a preference for those open pollinated or heirloom varieties because I can save the seeds. And next year, I won't need to buy as much because I've saved them with the intent of using. Well, it starts by just selecting the individual packets with that future in mind. And eventually, hopefully, I can get to the point where the costs of gardening are minimal because I'm doing things like saving seeds, harvesting for my own use, preserving, and it's really a great way to garden. The consideration for choosing what to grow that I probably have the most fun with is choosing something that is unique. Not only can't you find it in the store, but it's something that very few others are growing. Things like dragon tongue beans. And this fits a whole bunch of categories. You wouldn't be able to find this in the store. It tastes great. It's easy to grow in my garden, and it's very unique. I'm also growing black nebula carrots. This is a purple carrot, and I'm growing this for my grandkids as much for me because it's unique and it's something that all of us can enjoy in the garden, along with a strawberry popcorn. This is something you won't see in the store. It does have an average popcorn flavor, but it just looks so great growing on the stalk. It's unique, it's different, it's something that others aren't growing. And a bonus consideration is what ties into this. If you can choose something that's unique, something that's different, it's a great way to get the kids and all others interested in your garden because you can show them all these really cool plants that you're growing. Something that maybe they've never seen before, something that really prompts them to think about gardening as something they might want to do. And that's what I'm trying to promote with you as well, to get you out, to get you gardening, to think about what it is you're going to grow this year and using these tips in deciding what it is you choose. If you want to learn more about gardening aspects of all different types, go ahead and watch one of these videos next. I'm Gardener Scott. Enjoy gardening.